Hi everybody, Matt back with you. Hope you're okay. Today we're going to be visiting Macclesfield. We're specifically going to be looking at Macclesfield's link to Ian Curtis, the singer with Joy Division. Some of the themes that are covered in this video may not be suitable for everybody, so this is your trigger warning that there are themes of suicide in this video. This is the now painted over mural of Ian Curtis that was in Manchester. One of Macclesfield's most famous sons, Ian Curtis was the lead singer of Joy Division, one of the UK's most influential bands. Tragically, Ian died at the age of 23, but his legacy lives on, and the town of Macclesfield is proud of their connection to Ian Curtis and the tale it plays in his own story, as well as that of Joy Division as a whole. So Joy Division released 2 official studio albums. First one is in 1979, Unknown Pleasures, which is the one with the iconic front cover of the radio pulsar waves, which always looked a little bit like the Alps to me. Now this is the image that you pretty much associate with Joy Division at any point, and can be seen even on things like t-shirts and clothing today, so many years later. Interesting though, despite its iconic nature, when it was originally released it didn't even chart, and there were no singles released from the album either. This was the one that was released in Ian Curtis's lifetime, and even after his passing in 1980, it had a reissue that only reached 71 on the charts. The inside sleeve of the record features a black and white photo, which was known as Hand Through a Doorway. Today, Unknown Pleasures is actually still regarded as one of the best albums of all time. What do you think? And have you got your own copy of this? Let me know. Joy Division's second studio album was this one, Closer, which came out a couple of months after Ian Curtis's passing, and it was a much better commercial success for them. They did release future albums, although obviously not studio albums, and there is this one called Still, and this is a album of their final live performance as well as some other pieces that hadn't got released before. But it is the 2 albums that people still talk about today. I think when we're in Macclesfield we'll see these images quite often. What do you think? Are you a fan of Joy Division? Let me know below what your favourite song is or album. So even though Ian Curtis was born in Stretford, Macclesfield has claimed him purely because he lived here, went to school here and worked here. We're going to see if we can find some of those places from Ian's own past whilst we're here in Macclesfield. We are going to see his image quite a lot. We're currently at the subway heading into town. So let's go and see what else we can find. So this is our first stop today. This is on Mill Street in Macclesfield, and it's a fairly new addition. It was unveiled in March 2022 by Peter Hook, and it's a fairly big mural just near to the bus garage. So next up we're in the Churchill Street car park, where this whole block has been covered in artwork, and we can find Unknown Pleasures album cover.
To the center of the city where a road's being laid for you. To the
So whilst we're in Macclesfield, we are going to show a few of the bits that are not necessarily connected to Ian Curtis, but are connected to the kind of thing I do, which is obviously look for old abandoned buildings. There is a pub called the Talbot that Joy Division started their rehearsals in back in the 70s, but that's been demolished for about 40 years. There doesn't seem to be any pictures of it. There are over 2 abandoned pubs in Macclesfield Centre that I'm just going to show you. Maybe Ian Curtis visited those at some point. Joy Division were actually originally called Warsaw, named after a David Bowie song. They changed the name to Joy Division in 1978, which was quite a controversial name for the band, as it was named after, let's say, women kept in Jewish concentration camps for the pleasure of Nazi soldiers, in a book called The House of Dolls from 1955. And their first, EP release really was called An Ideal for Living, which this was the cover of, which features a member of the Hitler Youth. So there was a lot of people actually thinking they were Nazi sympathisers early in their career, which they very strongly denied, and thankfully perhaps they moved away from that imagery very quickly to avoid too much controversy. So unfortunately, this one is demolished, the old King's Head. It's been a Curtis piece of artwork on it. So I'm guessing this is all part of the pub as well. But at the other end of the same street, there is another abandoned pub. This one was the Three Pigeons. So Ian Curtis worked for the Labour Exchange, essentially a job centre. We'll buy that building now. Here's a little sign to show you where we are. I think somewhere on this building we should see once again the Unknown Pleasures album cover. And then from there we head to Barton Street. So Ian only had to walk 2 minutes to work. So here we are, Barton Street. So this is 77 Barton Street. This is where Ian Curtis lived and wrote many of the songs of Joy Division. Sadly, it is also the place where he died. And 2015, it was bought by an entrepreneur who had plans of turning it into potentially a museum. But since then, nothing has happened. Obviously, you can't go in it, but at least we can be here today. So soon after Joy Division had formed in 1977, Ian Curtis was actually diagnosed with epilepsy. When he was performing, he used to have fits and seizures on stage, and if you ever see any performances of him live, he's doing what's called the epilepsy dance. Sometimes he would put it on in case it wasn't working. He wasn't having those seizures officially, just to keep his audience guessing. But unfortunately they did get worse and worse, and his diagnosis was not good. Unfortunately, this caused great depression in Ian Curtis, and you can see the pain that he was suffering in the lyrics of his songs. Sadly, there's no getting away from the fact that in this house behind me, this is where Ian committed suicide in the kitchen by hanging himself, which must have been very difficult for not only the band, who were about to go on a tour of the USA the next day, which had already stressed Ian horribly because he didn't want to fly, he didn't want to be embarrassed with his seizures on stage, but he left behind a wife and a 1-year-old. Thankfully there are better understanding of seizures and mental health, and I'll talk about those a bit later. It's quite it's odd feeling being here. It's not the most exciting thing in the world to show you. This is the Regency Mill roundabout, but the reason I'm showing you this is this was the site of the Talbot pub, and this is where Joy Division did their rehearsals. Now I can't find any images of the pub at all, so if you do have any, I'd love to see some. Let me know where. So now we're in Macclesfield Cemetery, and here is where a lot of Ian Curtis's fans come over the last 40 years, because this is where his ashes were buried, and it does have a memorial stone, and I think they get so many visitors they've even done a map, which is just here. So if you go into the office, they will give you a copy of this map if you ask for it. You can see the memorial stone listed as being behind the crematorium. I think a couple of times the headstone has actually been stolen by fans. As you can see, there are a row of stones behind me. We're looking for something similar to that, so it's not very big, but yeah, don't steal a gravestone. It's quite a nice graveyard. Here is Ian's. So Ian Curtis passed away the 18th of May 1980. His legacy, though, is one of those performers who died young that are still talked about today. And as you can see from the tributes that are here, there's a lot of people still come and do this pilgrimage, if you like, pay their respects to a musical hero. After Ian Curtis's death, the remaining members of Joy Division went on to form New Order, who became a highly successful group through the 80s and 90s. And a biographical account of Ian Curtis's life is the film Control, which came out in 2007. So before we finish today's story, just have a quick look around Macclesfield Cemetery. Looks like there's quite a nice chapel here. I don't know if it's in use. And some very interesting buildings. So this is a fairly elaborate, just a grave, I think. Yeah, memory of Jeremy Clark.
As usual, it's over the nose. Yeah.
Thank you for not breaking the law. It's certainly a beautiful building. I do like the some cherubs on this side. think this character's from Game of Thrones. Okay, so that's just a little tour around some of the places linked with Ian Curtis, whether it's places he lived and worked or tributes that have appeared in the town of Macclesfield over the last 40 years. Obviously, we've touched on some subjects today which could trigger things. I hope the topics that we've covered have not upset you too much if that's sensitive to yourself. There is help available, better help than there was in 1980, certainly in terms of things like epilepsy. I have a couple of relatives who suffer from it, and it's quite controlled now due to medication they can receive. But I think specifically what I just want to mention before we finish is men's mental health, because obviously depression was a huge part of the reason Ian took his life so early, and there is help available specifically for men. I myself, about 4 years ago, suffering terribly from depression and anxiety and didn't know who to turn to. And it's a matter of breaking down that stigma. And I went to Andy's Man Club in Hebden Bridge, and you might have seen me quite often in these videos. I've got my jumper on with the Andy's Man Club badge. And it's just quite interesting that we're in Macclesfield today, because tonight Andy's Man Club opens in Macclesfield, the 117th group for Andy's Man Club in the UK in the last 6 years, which shows people are losing that stigma and now they are talking about their mental health. So, if you need to talk to somebody, do talk to someone, don't keep things in. I'm talking a lot there, but I hope I've done it justice if you're an Ian Curtis fan. The only thing I didn't cover was the college, where Ian went to school, basically, King's College. It's a little bit far out, but I wouldn't be able to get near it today because it's probably open. So that's it, guys. So from Tom and myself from Macclesfield, take care, and we'll see you very soon. Bye.